Hey, what's up and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions from YouTube, Twitter, and everywhere else and answer them here in video format. There was a lot of questions at the start of this week. There's honestly a lot more questions at the end of this week. It's been a wild ride. The Browns about to play the Bengals. You guys obviously have questions, a ton of questions about this Odell Beckham situation. So we just going to jump into this, man. And we're going to start with the first question from Jeffrey, who says, can this team get past this hailstorm? Honestly, and will the coaching staff regret the way they handled this and the offense all season so far? What happens from here? And what if, the offense is stale again on Sunday? If it's stale again on Sunday, it's a very, 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 very bad sign. And as far as being able to withstand this hailstorm, we're going to find out a lot about a lot of people on this team. We're going to find out a lot about the coaching staff. We're going to find out a lot about the quarterback. We're going to find out about the general leadership in this room, right? Because we have talked about why this team is different. One of the key things is that the leadership, right? That they're going to be able to get past a situation like this because they have such strong leadership in the room. But if that's not the case and they're not able to get past the situation, then obviously that means that we were wrong about that. So, you know, if we're looking at this situation about what we're going to learn about this team, we're going to learn a lot about the leadership, and that means the coaching staff, the coaches, the head coach, and then the quarterback as well, and also the locker room leaders, because if they can't get it together and get ready to win a must-win game this week because of all the noise, then we don't have proper leadership, and that's an issue that needs to be resolved sooner than later. The next question comes from Beep Beep Out of My Way, who says, what happened to our red zone offense? It seemed so much better last year. It didn't just seem, it was so much better last year. So why is the red zone offense, for lack of a better word, flat dookie right now? Well, that has to do a lot with execution on the offensive line. It has a ton to do with execution on play calling. It has a ton to do with penalties. Right? Every time the Browns get in the red zone and they get into like a 2nd and 2 or something in the red zone, what do? They have like 3 penalties and they get themselves pushed back. That's bad execution. Or Baker Mayfield misses a throw, or somebody drops a pass, or the offensive line misses a block and then we get sacked. How many times has this team given up a sack on 3rd or 4th down this year? Or we go for it and we don't get it. It's execution at the end of the day. It's this team's inability to do its job. And whether Odell Beckham is there or not, and he ain't, because he ain't a part of this team no more, you got to execute. If you execute better, you'll look better. That's really the truth of it. It don't matter who's out there. The Bengals are executing better than the Cleveland Browns right now. They don't have the roster the Cleveland Browns have, but they're playing better. They have a better record, and they've won more impressive games just because they're executing better. And that's the most important thing right now. Next question comes from Donut Nizzle, who says, how unexpected are you, or unexcited am I for the storylines that will happen if Baker has a good game this week with OBJ now no longer on the team? I don't care about any of these storylines. To be honest, I don't care about any of these narratives. I don't care what anybody nationally has to say, because right now this team's back's against the wall. You know, we can worry about the national TV and the national perspective and these storylines if the team is 4 games under 500 or if the team is 4 games above 500. But when you at 500 in November, it don't matter what you do, what anybody else think you're doing, or what anybody else says about what you're doing, unless you win every week. So that's their priority. It don't matter what anybody says about the Cleveland Browns from here on out, because the Browns just need to win. So unless they winning, nobody's going to talk about them. So that's really the most important thing. Look, they can say whatever. If Baker Mayfield comes out here and the narrative flips and then they still talk about it, I could care less, because the Browns got to win. They needed to win, and they're going to need to continue to win with how their schedule's looking. So that's really where I'm at with it. Like, I don't care what anybody else says about this team right now. The next question comes from Jonah, who says, hey, Q, the offensive line has not been playing anywhere near close to the level it was last year. Do you see this as being the main reason the offense hasn't played to the level we expected? And how do you see them playing against the defensive line in the Bengals? Everybody's going to have to step it up on the offense side of the ball this week. Because what we saw last week in Pittsburgh was an offense that put up 10 points. And 10 points ain't going to win you this game against the Bengals unless the Bengals just don't show up. So if you're the Cleveland Browns and you want to win this game, you have to play better on the offensive side of the ball, period. Now, as far as the offensive line goes, that's true. Offensive line has not lived up to expectations, and it's honestly the nucleus of everything else that has gone wrong with this team. The offense is clearly the problem with the team right now. The offensive line has been problem number one, right? The sacks on 3rd and 4th down, the penalties, the false starts, the holds whenever we get a big play. They're really holding back this team by not playing well. So I hope that this week, if it did anything, sparked a fire underneath this offensive line to understand why it's so important that they play better. Because if this offensive line had played better for this entire year, I promise you a lot of the issues that we have been seeing with the offense, the people not getting the ball, the frustrations because of the people aren't getting the ball, and the overall lack of creativity in the play calling side, just flat wouldn't be happening because the Browns would be able to trust that their offensive line is going to be able to hold up. Now, it's not all their fault. They have had a ton of injuries this year, but that being said, they still haven't performed up to spec when they had everybody out there. So, yeah, offensive line, they deal a great brunt of all of this dysfunction going on right now. They're not free of that blame either, right? A lot of it's going to Baker, a lot of it's going to Kevin, but the offensive line just flat not playing well, that's on them. This next question comes from Kyle Williams, who says, non-OBJ question here. Do you think that Ronnie Harrison has been playing his way out of town so far? Yeah, I mean, it was an uphill battle for him to make the roster next year anyways, just because they had John Johnson locked up for a couple of years. They have Grant Delpit. They already drafted Richie LeCounte, and other things like that have made it hard for them to justify signing another strong safety. But he has done nothing this year to justify him coming back at any number. So yeah, Ronnie Harrison, he came into here looking to be one of the biggest winners of this season, and he's going to end up being a big loser of this season if he does not step up his game tremendously. Now, that's not saying that he's been awful in all aspects. He's just not been great in a lot of areas, and he's really been part of the problem when it comes to the issues that the secondary has had against the deep ball especially. The next question comes from Snip Plays, who says, since you thought we should have held on to Odell, do you think releasing him is the correct move? At this point, I don't see what else you would do, to be honest with you, right? Like, I wish it didn't come to this point, but when Odell's dad posted that video, when there was no refutal or that video stayed up and didn't get deleted, and it was clear that Odell did not want that video to go down, that he was clearly trying to get something communicated through that, right? Because if that were just his dad acting alone and Odell caught wind of that, he would have told his dad to delete it. His dad would have deleted it, and he would have said, hey, man, I'm sorry about that. My dad, he's tripping. But the fact that it stayed up and it's still up to this day means that a point was probably trying to be communicated. If you don't think that's the case, I would just think that's naive, right? And like, all this stuff came out the day it did for a reason. It seemed pretty coordinated. So once that happened, he couldn't come back. I know there was a report that he was willing and able to come back. That's BS, man, because he knows he can't come back. After that, you just threw a bunch of people under the bus inadvertently. And honestly, the part that some people are going to find hard to respect about it is that you didn't even put your own name behind it when you were going to throw people under the bus. That's my thing. You going to throw somebody under the bus, that's one thing. And I know people have pointed out that Baker threw Miles under the bus when he hit the young boy with the helmet, but at least Baker put his own face behind that. He put that behind his chest, and I think that's ultimately why him and Miles were able to make up and accept each other and really become better friends after that incident, because, if you're going to say something, just say it. Odell wasn't even willing to put his own face behind that. Like, he said that behind the guise of his father, and I don't know. To me, as somebody who really liked Odell, really wished it would have worked out here, I think that's kind of weak. And I think that's really what makes it hard to respect how he went about it. Why he was frustrated, completely understandable and completely respectable. But how, I don't know if I can really respect how he went about it. That doesn't mean I wish to do ill will or I'm going to become an Odell hater or anything. I hope he has the best year he can possibly have. I hope he gets a new beginning somewhere. But, as far as how it ended here, it could have ended in a lot more of a respectable manner. And that's unfortunate that it didn't. And once that happened, you couldn't bring him back. You really can't. You can't bring dude back, because it's just going to cause a splint between the team if the issues with Odell continue and you don't target him. And it looks like the offense had no plans in making him a bigger part of the offense, or the offensive staff had no plans. The next question comes from Dr. Maggie, who says, through the whole fiasco, it has been Odell this and Baker that. Now OBJ has been released. When are we going to blame Kevin Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt for not opening up the offense to compensate for the talent that they had? Remember, Stephon Diggs wanted out of Minnesota. At some point, Kevin Stefanski is going to have to understand that, if you want to bring in a star wide receiver to this roster, to this team, to help expand things and to help give your quarterback a safety net, which is understandable, you're going to also have to understand that you have to game plan with a wide receiver in mind. You're going to have to game plan with a star wide receiver as a pillar of this offense. The issue that Kevin Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt has had is that they have not considered him as a pillar of this offense. And let me make one thing clear. It's not really an issue of if he can rely on a wide receiver. When they've needed to lean on Jarvis Landry or Adam Thielen back in his Minnesota days, they really have no problem doing so. It's more or less getting the most out of somebody you deem to be a deep threat. And Odell is somebody who's a number one receiver and a deep threat, and it seemed like they only viewed him as a deep threat and a decoy, which is not the proper way to use him. And it's honestly a misuse of the $14 million they were about to spend on him. So if that's the case, and Kevin Stefanski's offense is always going to work well with a strong two and an X receiver who's not necessarily a number one receiver, but more of a burner. Think of like a Hollywood Brown or, for Browns purposes, Anthony Schwartz or a Ted Ginn. Then that's just how the offense is going to have to work. But it's a lesson that they're going to have to learn and apply going forward when it comes to building these rosters, because they can't afford to make another mistake like that again. The next question comes from Jeremy, who says, hey, Q, I don't blame Odell for the lack of chemistry, nor do I blame Baker. If I'm honest, I was hopeful when we got Odell, but I thought it didn't work well from the beginning. Something was always off. Do you think the offense without Odell might revert back to a more organic feel? P.S. Even if Baker is good, everyone will still bury him no matter what he does. I don't know if that's the case. If Baker comes out and plays well on Sunday, a lot of people are going to turn that stank eye to Odell. Look, these are both two polarizing players, right? These are two dudes who have either had the favor or ire of the public opinion for quite a while, right? So I don't think any of these dudes are going to get a fair benefit of the doubt when it comes to their public trial or whatever. But look, I think there's a chance, right? If a lot of what the coaching staff has leaked out there, that Odell was not where he was supposed to be on certain timing routes, and that was really throwing off the offense, I can see where on some plays that can make a huge issue with how Baker has looked and how this passing game has looked if somebody's not where you want them to be. It's another thing that happens with the Shanahan offense. So we'll see what the case is with that. And again, if you look at other Shanahan offenses, they don't really do well with those like star wide receivers, just because it does take I don't want to say dependable, because Odell's a dependable route runner, but somebody who is always going to run the same route no matter what, right? Odell is going to option out of a route if he feels like he can get open on a play. And with a star wide receiver, that's just what they're going to do. And that's why they're star wide receivers, because they have that ability, they have that intelligence, and they're able to make that play. If that's something that was thrown off the offense, that can make sense. But we'll see, man. We'll see. We're going to find out about all these Baker is better without Odell narratives by the end of the season, and it starts on Sunday. But thank you guys for asking all these questions. Want you guys to have a great day. Have a good night.